I wasn't supposed to make it out of that night alive, and if it weren't for one other person hearing it too, I'd probably sound completely insane right now. This happened when I was 18. I'm 22 now, and I still can't explain it. Back then, I was living in San Antonio, Texas. It was my senior year, right when COVID had just started shutting the world down. Schools closed, streets emptied. Everyone was told to stay inside, but we didn't. If anything, my friends and I went out more than ever. There was nothing else to do, and I've always had a thing for urban exploring, especially abandoned or haunted places. I'm not easy to scare. I've run into homeless camps, strange people, even had a gun pulled on me once. But none of that compares to what happened that night. Around that time, I had just started talking to a girl from school, Clarissa. We weren't serious yet, but somehow I convinced her to go with me into a wooded park at 3 a.m. The place was called O.P. Schnabel. Beautiful during the day, but at night, different story. People avoided for a reason. A woman had been brutally murdered there years before, stabbed over 20 times. Not long after, a kid exploring those same woods got shot. And every local knows, once it gets dark, you don't go in. We went anyway. By the time we got there, it was pitch black. The trees swallowed what little moonlight there was. I kept my flashlight off, partly so my eyes could adjust, partly because I didn't want anyone or anything seeing us first. We walked the main trail for about 15 minutes. Something already felt off. Too quiet. Not normal quiet, like the woods were holding their breath. I decided to cut through a smaller off-trail path that looped back to my truck. Clarissa hesitated, but agreed. That's when everything changed. About 2 minutes into that narrow trail, a sound sliced through the silence. A flute. Clear. Controlled. Almost perfect. We both froze instantly. At first, it sounded distant, like someone playing deep in the woods. But the melody was too precise, too deliberate. It wasn't random. It sounded like an actual piece of music, something almost beautiful. And that made it worse, because there was no way someone should have been out there. Not at 3 a.m. Not in that place. 15 seconds passed, and the sound got closer. Clarissa grabbed my arm. She was shaking, really shaking. Then she started whispering prayers under her breath, like she already knew something I didn't. That's when it hit me. This wasn't normal. The flute didn't echo like a normal sound. It didn't travel in one direction. It felt like it was circling us, slipping between the trees, closing in. I tried to figure out where it was coming from, but it didn't make sense. 1 second, it was behind us. The next, it felt like it was right above us. Then it got louder. Too loud. Like whoever, or whatever, was playing. It was standing just feet away, but we couldn't see a single thing. I told her we needed to run. We took off down the trail as fast as we could. Branches whipping in our faces, feet slamming against dirt, hearts pounding so hard it felt like they'd burst out of our chests. The flute stopped, or maybe it didn't. I couldn't tell anymore. All I knew was we had to get out. We barely made it 30 feet before something exploded out of the darkness. Right in front of us, a massive shape tore across the path. Fast, violent, kicking up leaves and snapping branches like they were nothing. I felt it. Not just saw it, felt it. Like the air itself got shoved out of the way. But here's the thing. I never saw what it was. No outline, no sado, nothing. And even worse, I didn't hear it coming and I didn't hear it leave. Just that one impossible moment, right in front of us. We didn't think. We turned and ran the other way, back toward where the flute first started. And as soon as we got there, it started playing again, louder than before, closer than before. No, not close. On top of us. The sound wasn't just music anymore. It had this strange metallic chime woven into it, like something ancient trying to mimic a song it didn't fully understand. It surrounded us. Every direction, every step. That's when my instinct snapped. Not fear. Something deeper. Something that screamed. We were not alone. We were trapped. Not the kind of trap where you can think things through calmly. This was the kind that forces a decision before your brain can even catch up. Two choices. Both bad. Go back into the off-road trail. Into the darkness. Into whatever had just torn across our path. Or run straight into the main trail, toward the flute and whoever or whatever was playing it. The off-road trail was pitch black, swallowed by dense forest. Noble civility. No escape if something was waiting. The main trail at least had structure. Cement. Open space. A direction. I didn't hesitate. Run to the main trail, I told Clarissa. She nodded, still shaking, barely holding it together. Then we ran. Adrenaline took over completely. What should have been a slow 20-minute walk turned into a hard, relentless sprint. Every breath burned. Every step felt like something was right behind us, just out of sight. At some point, the flute stopped. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe we just outran it. Or maybe it let us go. Halfway back, we passed a single porta potty sitting alone near the trail. And I swear, that thing terrified me almost as much as the forest. Because in that moment, my mind went somewhere dark. What if someone was inside? What if they had been watching us? What if that's where the sound came from? I didn't slow down, didn't even look too closely. I just kept moving. When we finally reached the entrance, my truck was the only vehicle there. No signs of anyone else. No footsteps. No lights. Nothing. Like the entire night had been staged just for us. We jumped in. I didn't stop driving until we were miles away. The next day, I told everyone. Friends. Forum. Anyone who would listen. I searched online for hours. Days even, trying to find anything similar. People talked about ghosts, cults, animals making strange noises. But a flute? Clear. Rhythmic. Intentional. Nothing. The closest houses were miles away. There's no way sound could carry that far, not like that. Not with that kind of precision. To this day, I don't know what we heard or what crossed our path. And the more I think about it, the less it feels like something human. I never went back there at night. I still explore, still chase that edge, but I've never experienced anything like that again. Now, this next part, it's different. No goods, no flute, but somehow just as unsettling. I'm 20 years old, working as a pharmacy technician at a mid-sized hospital in Northwest Alabama. Night shift, 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. 7 days on, 7 days off. That schedule sounds manageable on paper. In reality, it wears you down. By the sixth night of my shift rotation, Tuesday, I was already running on fumes. I left work early to drive out to my wife's aunt's house, about 30 minutes away. My wife had been staying there, babysitting her younger cousins while her aunt and uncle were out of town. She didn't want to be alone. The house had no curtains, wide exposed windows. At night, it felt like the outside could see everything inside, but you couldn't see anything out there. At first, I didn't go with her. Didn't make sense with my schedule. But on her last night, something changed. She called me, and I could hear in her voice, uneasy, tense. So I went. The moment I arrived, she relaxed. Said she felt better, but I didn't. Working nights for 2 years had already started messing with my head. Sleep didn't come easy anymore. That night, it didn't come at all. I stayed awake, completely awake. We had a full day ahead, dropping the kids at school, attending a gender reveal party, grocery shopping, then straight back to work. At some point, I passed 24 hours without sleep, then 28. I tried to rest in the car, maybe got 10 minutes at most. That heavy wave of exhaustion hit me, but it never fully pulled me under. So I did what a lot of people do when they're desperate to function. I forced it. Energy drinks, caffeine, anything to stay alert. By the time I got back to work Wednesday night, I had been awake since 2 p.m. the day before. Over 24 hours, and still going. My wife drove me there. I wasn't risking it. My brakes were bad, and honestly, I didn't trust myself behind the wheel anymore. Not like that. The shift started normally. As long as I kept moving, I could ignore the fatigue. I had my earbuds in, music playing, focusing on stocking medications in the surgery rooms. Late night procedures were wrapping up. Cleaning crews moved in and out. Doors opened, closed. Footsteps echoed. Routine. Predictable. Safe. Or at least it should have been. Because in places like that, quiet, sterile, controlled, you start to notice things. Small things. Things that don't quite fit. And when you've been awake that long, you can't always tell what's real anymore. But what I experienced that night, that wasn't just exhaustion. Something was off. I was about to find out just how wrong things could get. The moment that door slammed behind me, I knew something wasn't right. Not just the sound, the way it echoed, sharp and metallic, like it didn't belong in a place that still. I had my earbuds in, music playing low, but I still heard it clearly This slow creak of hinges that hadn't been oiled in years, followed by that heavy, final bang. I turn around like I always did. No one. Not unusual at first. People come and go all the time in surgery. Maybe they saw me and left. That's what I told myself. So I kept working. Pushed my cart into the next room. Dark. Completely dark. I opened the door, and that's when I saw it. A figure, hunched over near the Omnicell machine, digging through the sharps bin. If you've never seen one, that's where used needles and vials go. Biohazard. Dangerous. The kind of place no one should ever be reaching into. But I had heard stories. People desperate enough to dig through them, looking for leftover morphine. It had happened before. Someone got caught. Fired immediately. So I reached for the light. Flipped the switch. Nothing. No one. The room was empty. Clean. Silent. That's when the first crack formed in my logic. I stood there for a second longer than I should have, trying to convince myself I was just tired. Over 24 hours without sleep. Maybe my brain was starting to slip. Get it together, I muttered, and I moved on. I finished stocking without anything else happening, at least nothing I could prove. By 2 a.m., it was time to deliver medications to the nurses' stations, floor by floor. Routine, mechanical, safe, or at least it used to be. The hospital layout was simple. Elevators in the center, left side, right side, wings branching out with identical rooms. Everything mirrored, everything predictable, except that night, one section wasn't. The 5455 wing on the 5th floor was under renovation. Empty, no patients, no staff, just dark hallways and closed doors. Naturally, I went there. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe, or maybe something else was pulling me. The moment I stepped into that wing, the atmosphere changed. It felt heavier, thicker, like the air itself didn't want me there. No voices, no machinas, no movement, just silence. I walked slowly down the hallway, my footsteps echoing louder than they should have. Then I heard it, a metallic rattling, sharp, violent, coming from one of the rooms ahead. Room 5512. I moved closer, just enough to look inside. And what I saw, I still can't fully process it. An old man, lying in the hospital bed, convulsing violently, his body jerking in unnatural angles, hands clawing at the sheets. Blood streamed from his eyes, his nose, his mouth, dark and thick, soaking into the pillow beneath him. The sound he made, it wasn't human. A wet, choking groan like something trying to breathe through liquid. The monitor beside him screamed, rapid, desperate beeping. The kind you hear when someone is about to die. My heart dropped instantly. Every instinct told me to help. I stepped back for a split second, then rushed into the room. Empty. The bed, perfectly made. No blood. No patient. No sound. Nothing. It was like the last 10 seconds had been erased. That's when fear stopped being subtle. That's when it took over. I didn't question it anymore. Didn't try to explain it. I turned and walked fast, almost running, back to the elevators. Hit the button. Doors opened. And then, he stepped in. An old man. Security uniform. Hospital badge clipped to his chest. As he passed me, he lightly patted my shoulder. And I froze. Because it was him. The same man. The one I had just seen dying. Up close, his face looked normal. Too normal. He smiled. Calm. Friendly. Like nothing had ever happened. The doors closed. The elevators started moving up. I didn't press anything. I just stood there, watching the numbers climb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then silence. A few seconds later, the same elevator came back down. On its own, the doors opened. Empty. No one inside. That was it. I didn't wait. I went straight back to the pharmacy, sat down, and didn't move for the rest of my shift. Didn't care about work anymore. Didn't care about anything. I just needed it to be over. While I sat there, trying to steady my breathing, I looked something up. How long without sleep before hallucinations start? 30 to 48 hours. I checked the time. I was at 38. So yeah, it made sense. That's what I told myself. It had to make sense. But then, as I walked out to my wife's car that morning, I looked up. The pharmacy sits directly under that same wing. And there's a window at the very end of the 5th floor hallway. I don't know why I looked. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe something made me. But I did. And standing there, in that window, was the old man, looking directly at me, smiling, waiting. I didn't say a word as I got in my wife's car. Not about the man, not about the elevator, not about the way he smiled at me like he knew something I didn't. I just sat there in silence, because no matter how many times I replayed it in my head, it didn't make sense. I had never seen that man before in my life. No memory, no connection, nothing. So why him? Why that face? Why did it feel so real? I went home and passed out almost instantly. Deep, heavy sleep, the kind your body forces on you after pushing too far. And when I woke up, he was gone. No more sightings, no more shadows, but the memory didn't fade. That was less than 2 weeks ago. And even now, I still don't know if I imagined it, or if something else was watching me that night. Now, this next story, it doesn't start in a hospital. It starts somewhere much quieter, somewhere that should have felt safe. I live with my boyfriend in his house. It's a modest place, tucked into a good neighborhood where violent crime is rare. Compared to the surrounding homes, it's smaller, but that's what makes it perfect. Quiet street, privacy, no houses directly facing ours. Just 8 homes on the entire block. And at the far end, a small wooded area. The kind of place you don't really think about until something gives you a reason to. Last October, my boyfriend left town for a weekend in Vegas. Bachelor party, Thursday to Monday. I was alone. Friday night, I invited some friends over. Wine, laughter, scary movies, the usual. We were all packed into the living room, lights dimmed, completely absorbed in what we were watching. Then, the doorbell rang. Sharp, sudden. We all froze. It didn't feel real. Like the timing was too perfect, too cliche. No one moved at first. Then I got up, slowly, trying to peek outside without being obvious. The front window didn't give me a clear angle, so I checked the small glass panel at the top of the door. Nothing. No one on the porch. But that didn't make sense. There were 4 cars in the driveway. Whoever rang that bell had to know someone was home. I went back to the group. We all laughed it off, a little uneasily, agreeing it was probably just someone playing ding-dong ditch at the worst possible moment. Eventually, the night ended. Everyone left. The house went quiet again. I went to bed and fell asleep almost instantly. But less than an hour later, I woke up. The doorbell was ringing again. Twice. I grabbed my phone. 1 a.m. That's when the fear hit. No one belongs at your door at that hour. I called my boyfriend immediately. He answered, clearly drunk, music blasting in the background. He stepped away to hear me better, and once I explained, his tone shifted. Stay in the bedroom. Don't open the door. That was it. No mention of calling the police. So I didn't. Not yet. We hung up. I tried to calm down, slow my breathing, convince myself it was nothing. And just as my heart rate finally started to drop, I heard it. A faint clicking sound. Outside. Then, a knock. Not on the door. On my window. A man's voice followed. Hey, anyone home? I need some help out here. Every muscle in my body locked up. The blinds were closed. Thank God. I couldn't see him, and he couldn't see me. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then he knocked again. Harder. I know you're home. That's when I called the police. I whispered the entire time, barely able to get the words out, telling them someone was outside, try to get in. I didn't know if he was still there. I didn't know if he was watching. I just knew I wasn't alone anymore. Minutes passed. Felt like hours. Then, the doorbell rang again, followed by loud, aggressive knocking. I forced myself out of the bedroom and approached the front door. Who is it? I called out. It's the police. Different voice. Calm. Direct. I looked through the glass panel. 2 officers. Relief hit me instantly. I unlocked the door. The taller one stepped inside without hesitation, brushing past me like he owned the place. His presence filled the room immediately, but not in a comforting way. Cold. Sharp. He said they were responding to a disturbance. I started explaining everything. The doorbell, the window, the voice. But he cut me off. Shush. Just like that. Dismissive. Irritated. Like I was wasting his time. His partner stood behind him, silent. Watching. The taller officer kept interrupting me, asking questions I had already answered. What did he look like? I didn't see him, I repeated. Well, you're the one who called us, ma'am. If you don't want our help, we can leave. That hit me hard. I wasn't expecting comfort, but I wasn't expecting that either. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm just scared." They didn't respond. Instead, they went outside, walking the perimeter of the house with their flashlights. A full circle. Then they came back, but something about the way they looked at me, it didn't feel like they had found nothing. It felt like they weren't telling me everything. And in that moment, standing alone in my own house, I realized something far worse than being scared. I realized whatever had been outside earlier might not have been the only thing watching me. It didn't even try. I stood there watching through the window as the two officers made a slow, lazy loop around the house, flashlights barely sweeping the ground, like they were already convinced there was nothing to find. No urgency, no tensión, no sense that someone had just been outside my window minutes earlier. They came back to the door and gave me the same cold answer. No cameras, no proof, there's nothing we can do. And then they left, just like that. The silence that followed felt worse than before, because now, if someone was still out there, I was completely on my own. I went back to bed, forcing myself to believe it was over. Somehow, I managed to fall asleep. When I woke up, sunlight was pushing through the blinds. Morning, safe, or at least it looked that way. It was Saturday around 10 a.m. I had plans, a Halloween party later that night. Something normal, something to pull me out of whatever that nightmare had been. I spent the day running errands, buying groceries, picking up last-minute things for the party. I even leaned into it, dressed up as Velma from Scooby-Doo. My friend hosting the party was Daphne. For a few hours, everything felt normal again. The party started at 9, picked up around 10:30. Music, laughter, people everywhere. Noise, light, life. I stayed late, left a little after 1 a.m. I hadn't had much to drink, just a couple beers. I was clear-headed when I drove home. And that's when it started again. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. A cold draft. Subtle but wrong. I set my things down slowly, scanning the room. Then I saw it. The window. Open. I froze. I didn't remember opening it. Not before the party. Not at all. I walked over, closed it, locked it, trying to convince myself I had just forgotten. But something in my gut told me that wasn't true. I want to brush my teeth. Try to act normal. Try to shake it off. But when I stepped back into the hallway, my heart stopped. The basement door was wide open. I know I didn't leave it like that. I know it. And that's when I heard it. Click, click, click. Faint, steady, mechanical. Coming from below. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But something pulled me closer. One slow step at a time, toward the top of the basement stairs. The darkness down there was absolute. Thick, like it swallowed light. I leaned forward just enough to look. And the clicking stopped. Dead silence. Then, a voice. Low, calm, right from the darkness. "You're finally home." I didn't think. I reacted. I slammed the basement door shut so hard the walls shook, grabbed my phone, and ran outside barefoot. I didn't even lock the door behind me. I ran straight to my neighbor's house, pounding on the door until he answered. I must have looked insane. I didn't care. From inside his house, shaking, I called the police again. And when they arrived, it was the same two officers. Of course it was. But this time, I wasn't alone. My neighbor stood beside me as I told him everything. And something about that changed the atmosphere. The taller officer, the rude one, was quieter now. Less dismissive, or maybe just more careful. They searched the house again, more thoroughly this time. Or at least it looked that way. They checked rooms, closets, windows, but I didn't trust it. So I walked them through every possible place someone could hide. Every corner, every shadow. I tore the house apart in front of them, needing proof that no one was there. And in the end, nothing. No one. No sign of forced entry. No explanation. Just that same empty, suffocating silence. I didn't stay. I packed a bag, called my sister, and left that night. Before I walked out, I checked every single window. Locked. Every one. Because here's the truth I learned the hard way. If a window can open wide enough for someone to crawl through, then it can be used against you. We still live in that house. Nothing like that has happened since. But for months, I refused to be alone there. Even now, it lingers. That feeling, that memory. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I wake up suddenly, certain I heard it again. A knock, soft, right against the window.